Right. So I'm gonna hit the transition button and we're out behind the blue curtain.
Okay.
Hello, welcome to some Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Mango.
And I am your co-host, Buddy.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about the new Chip and Dale movie on Disney Plus. But before we do that, we want to tell the folks at home what it is we do on this podcast.
Well, on this podcast, we talk about games, but also movies and stuff, and also other stuff. So today, this may be like the least game-related thing we've talked about in a long time. This is the movie that came out over the weekend was Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which was essentially created by like the Lonely Island crew, stars Andy Samberg and John Mulaney. Directed by Akiva Schaffer, I think is his name. He's the guy that does all the Lonely Island stuff, right? And it's basically a modern sort of whodunit kind of LA noir mystery thing set in a world where, like essentially Roger Rabbit. I
Yeah, I would
almost
say
want
it's
to say
a
it is
modern day.
canon to Roger Rabbit, right? Like this is a a sequel to Roger
Oh,
Rabbit, or at
who
least kind of
framed Roger Rabbit?
diegetically they're
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same.
Right, because Roger Rabbit does show up inside
Yeah.
of this movie. Yeah.
But also he's not like old. This is one of the things that I was like, because Roger Rabbit is a movie from the 80s that is set in the 40s, right? Um, but which would mean that Roger Rabbit himself in 2022 would be a gazillion years old, theoretically, right? But he wasn't that, and it was just a sight gag, and it's just like, how much am I supposed to look into this and care about it? And I have some deep thoughts about that piece of it, but we can save that stuff for
Yeah,
spoilers, I
I was
guess.
gonna say like the diegetics of like the cartoon life cycle are uh a little suspect, I think is the best way to put it. Like there's an obvious character who does age very pretty obviously. Um well we will get into that post spoilers, but post the spoiler wall. Um but before the spoiler or before we get there, let's give our general opinions first. Buddy, what did you generally think of this movie?
I actually do think this movie is worth a watch, but it is weirdly worth a watch, not for the movie itself, but sort of for the surrounding, like, sight gags that exist around the whole periphery of it, right? Um, the when I this wasn't something that ever engaged me on a plot or a character level, really. That stuff was just kind of whatever. But like the thing that really grabbed my attention and held my attention was catching the little references, right? The neat little jokes, the little bits that were playing out in the background, right? And that stuff was really great and made it kind of worth it, like worth a watch, I guess. So that's my recommendation. It's not actually that good of a movie, but as a collection of pretty funny sight gags and like deep cuts for, like animation or whatever, I thought it was pretty great.
So I think I generally agree with that. I think I'm going to be a little bit more down on it, just because like the thing that keeps hitting into my mind. This movie, when if you've ever watched like a children's television show, they've got like little gags that are there clearly there for the parents, and like I think that's a lot of what you're talking about, right? Like it's stuff for like the older crowd that the older crowd can latch onto. However, that's like the entire movie, right? Like there's ostensibly this like a movie for kids happening in the foreground, which is the plot that you're talking about. Except that what child wants to watch this fucking movie? They don't know who Chip and Dale is. Um, and like they're not gonna get any of like the kind of nostalgia rubs that are like there for the older crowd. And so like I don't know, to me it feels like they tried to make a children's movie that had like these references, but that's the only thing that's there is like those kind of adult references. I would have rather if it's the Lonely Island. I would have rather seen them have gone like full Who Framed Roger Rabbit on it, right, and like made it a movie for adults, right, like and just kind of like thrown away the whole kid line because like the surface level plot is very kind of like kitty logic, right, like things that you're not supposed to think about too much, and I think that's a great detriment to the movie. But I do think it's fun, right? Like like you said, Lonely Island. It's Andy Samberg as Dale and John Mulaney as Chip. Um, and I thought that they brought appropriate energy to the roles. The thing that's
Okay, that's interesting.
Oh, did you not? Do you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that too. That's not necessarily a spoiler thing. I think they have bad chemistry and they don't work well together, right? Like on, the thing that makes these kinds of odd couple pairings work is that you have a truly odd couple, right? You have two people with just completely different energies kind of clashing, right? So like Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black is a good example of this, right? Will Smith is, he's quick on his feet, he's improvisational, he's fast talking, right? Tommy Lee Jones is slow and he's very self-serious, right? And he has this kind of like, I don't know, like this like cowboy thing going on, right? And so like the clash of those two things makes for just like really electric chemistry, which I guess I'm mixing my metaphors, but whatever. I just sort of felt like John Mulaney and Andy Samberg couldn't play off of each other, mostly because John Mulaney was bad. Like he just doesn't sell this straight man thing to me, I guess, is sort of where I come down on it. He's trying to be the straight man to Andy Samberg's like wacky goofball, and maybe it's just I have expectations based on the John Mulaney voice that are weird. But like it was just I couldn't get into their individual dynamic kind of on that level.
See, that's interesting because I see what you're saying, but I attributed that more to this kind of like made it a kids
I
movie
feel
thing.
like Mango has frozen and I am talking to no one.
Okay.
Whoops.
So I can hear you. Can you
Oh
hear?
wait, I can hear you now.
Okay, because you've been pretty smooth, but your quality's been degrading as we've been talking.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's like an internet thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like imagine there was a movie that starred Chris Tucker and Eddie Murphy as like, you know, the like that's the pairing, right? It's like yeah, that's why it doesn't work.
See,
Does that make
so
sense?
I see what you're saying, and what I was saying. Well, apparently you couldn't hear me. Is I attributed more of that to the kiddie movie stuff, right? Like, I
Okay.
feel like John Mulaney was prevented from playing more of a straight man because he had to play a softer version of that character because
Hmm.
he's supposed to be for kids, right? Like, I don't put it like it didn't seem to me to like rest on John Mulaney and because like his whole comedy styling is him. Uh, his whole comedy styling is him basically being kind of like a straight man ish, right? Like, like pointing, like it's like standard observational humor, like pointing out the absurdities in the world around you, right?
Hmm.
But in that role, I feel like his stand up is him playing mostly straight man type characters. Um, I don't know. Anyway, uh, so I think both of us thought it was worth a watch. I guess I don't know. I would not.
Yeah, so I would say this worth a watch. Part of this, by the way, is that it is a Disney Plus thing,
Right.
and I would not recommend getting Disney Plus for this. But if you have it, if you picked up a Disney Plus subscription for your kid, if you are waiting for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show to come out in a couple of days or whatever, right? Like hell yeah, man, pick that up, brother, right? Like spend 2 hours watching this thing because it's just kind of neat. It's just sort of like a neat little thing. So it's maybe one of the softest recommends that I could ever possibly give, given all those circumstances. If this was in the theaters, nope. If this was, under any more sort of specific restrictions than if you have a Disney Plus membership, you might as well watch it. That's sort of where I come down.
I think I agree with that, like almost entirely. The only thing I want to do is like, excuse me, just as like a point of plot summarization before we get into it, because this was the thing that threw me because I went into it pretty blind. So a reason I watched this, at least his friend of the cast, Zhao, recommended it to us.
Okay.
Um, but a point of plot clarification, just like much like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right? Like it's Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, but it's not Chip and Dale playing their characters from the show. They're playing chipmunks who are actors who played those characters in a show when it happened, right? So Chip and Dale are like real people who are the actors who played Chip and Dale, the Rescue Rangers, and the other people show up, which is something that was not apparent to me until I watched. Like I didn't watch any shows or anything. But if you're going into this thinking this is going to be like a soft reboot of Rescue Rangers, it is not that. It is a pretend thing, right? Which is
Yeah,
fine
it's
for what it
weird
is. It's
because
just
like I want to call it a parody. There are moments in here that are truly parody, right?
right.
Like there's like a Batman meets the Flash bit that plays out, and that's like true parody. But like, this isn't really parody. It's also like I said satire, but it's also not satire. It actually kind of just plays the whole thing dead straight, and that's it. Like, there's not a lot of comedy built at the expense of, the genre that it's picking apart, because it's not even really doing that, right? Which is sort of something that you could say for Roger Rabbit, for instance.
Right. This is almost a straight play of a movie that is about a couple of actors who are stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's weird to me. It almost, honestly,
it's like it's like straight BoJack Horseman, right? Like BoJack Horseman is also straight, right? Like it's like kids BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, actually. The other thing it reminds me of is, did you ever watch Ralph Breaks the Internet? Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet?
The second one,
Yeah, where like they get connected to the internet and the whole thing is just like, it is basically just the Emoji Movie, actually, in that it's like all about these different like apps or whatever, and like the cross promotional brands that like the Disney Corporation hold. I hated this movie, by the way. I mean, I don't think I'm painting it in a very good light in the first place, but the it was sort of similar in that sense. But the thing that set it apart for me is that where Ralph felt hollow, this feels sort of lived in, I guess. It's sort of a weird way to put it. Or like authentic, right?
Yeah.
With Wreck-It Ralph, it kind of felt like I don't know, like, how do you do, fellow kids? The movie, right? This one, I think that this movie has a weird, strange kind of love for this like sort of subculture in a way, right? Like this stuff with Ugly Sonic, this stuff with Tigra from like the Avengers cartoon, and like Dale is sort of doing this circuit. There's something kind of empathetic about the texture and the portrayal of it that makes it not feel like corporate propaganda. It makes it feel like an artist who is kind of getting to play in the sandbox with his beloved, toys or whatever else.
So this is interesting because I don't know if it ever actually happened, but the actor who played Wash, Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk. Yeah.
Yeah. He was trying to make a web series about essentially someone like a lesser known character on the con circuit, right? That was like doing this kind of thing, and like the secondary character would have been Nathan Fillion as callbacks to their Firefly roles. Very much. This is also it's fucking what's the name of it? Galaxy Quest, right? This is like Galaxy Quest or BoJack Horseman, but with the property that they're spoofing being real, right? Like
yeah.
This is like if Galaxy Quest was actually about Star Trek, right? Or like if BoJack Horseman was actually about. Actually, this is just like BoJack Horseman is if it was Chip and Dale instead of BoJack Horseman and like more adult, right? Like,
yeah.
Because like it is, it's excuse me, it is interesting that they kind of like it's gone full circle, right? Like this is one of those styles of movies where you're like that. The thing that makes it not parody isn't the fact that it's not in that form. It's the fact that the thing that it's like would lampoon is real, right?
Yeah.
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers existed, right? Didn't exist exactly in the form that the movie portrays it as, because obviously the chipmunks aren't real, right? Like, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's enough pre-spoiler stuff.
Yeah, okay. Honestly, like, even spoiler stuff, what is there? The movie spoiled itself with the trailer. I wish I hadn't seen the trailer for this, because, like, half of the movie is built on this mystery that is spoiled in the fucking trailer.
Oh, is it really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is
Peter Pan shows up in the trailer.
Yeah, but it's not even that much of a mystery, though, right? Like, they figure out. So, spoiler warning if you've managed to avoid it and you care about the plot of this movie, which again isn't important. You go to this movie for the sight gags. But spoiler, like, we find out that Peter Pan's the bad guy pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, so this was something that made me like the movie more, and I was excited for this, which was it was going at an incredibly fast clip, and I was pretty sure it was going to go off the rails at the end. Because like the process of actually getting into the mystery and solving the mystery and doing the thing where like the friends, you know, they're like getting the gang back together or whatever, like there's like a double cross in the middle there. All of that stuff is happening pretty quickly, right? You're moving along, and I'm looking at like the progress bar, and I'm like, man, there's still 45 minutes left in this movie, and I feel like we're almost fucking done. What I think is going to happen is this whole thing is sort of the like a typical 3 act structure is going to be compressed into the first 2 acts, because the movie understands that we understand this plot structure, and then it is going to go buck wild in Act 3. And that sort of did not happen. In fact, they sort of almost bamboozled me, because the double cross was just played dead straight. And that was the joke. You know, like like the double cross actually looked clever for a second, but the fact that the double cross was clever was the joke, because the double cross was actually just very straightforward the whole time. And it's like on that level, I almost respect the balls of it more than anything else. Just like, what a bit to play, right? Just
Right.
like, what a fantastic joke to play out beginning to end. But also it sort of makes the movie worse in aggregate, because it doesn't actually do sort of the adventurous thing that I was hoping for it to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, but again, I'm sounding too much. This felt like the kid movie part of it, right? It's like, of
Yeah.
course, you can't have like, the friendly, audience self insert actually be the bad guy. It has to be the weird Gumby ripoff. Um,
Yeah,
but
I do also just have to say a lot of that came down to sort of like the performance, and that part was stop motion animated, which was nice. And J.K. Simmons is just like, he was J.K. Simmons in that part. Like
yeah.
there's the one bit where he's like, "Oh, like my wife died. No, I did it for the money." And I was just like, "Yes. Thank you." This is the kind of thing that I have been so mad about, right? Like we keep talking about these villains, like these empathetic villains like Thanos or whatever, and like how much of a problem is this guy just did it for the fucking money. He just wants to get rich. That's it. Thank God. Like, give me more.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I do think they let like when Zhao in one of our collective chats said something like, ugly Sonic shows up from the Sonic movie. I'm like, oh, that'll be a fun gag. There is so much ugly Sonic in this movie. Like he is like a set like he's not a primary character, but he's like a very prominent and plot important secondary character. It's like it makes me feel almost like the people who made the Sonic movie were like, we can't let this model go to waste. Let's like
I feel like they spent a lot, because like there's a lot of stuff in here that is not owned by them, right? Which was a big deal during Roger Rabbit, right? Because there's a moment where Roger Rabbit is falling and he meets Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in midair, and that was like a huge landmark thing, because they got the rights to both Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny for the movie, right? They licensed Bugs Bunny specifically. They had the rights to Mickey Mouse. It was a Disney movie. So they licensed the rights to Bugs Bunny to put him in the movie so that he could be like next to Mickey Mouse. And there were gags like that happening all over the place, right? And I was just like, God damn, how did they get like, Randy from South Park was in there, Butthead, like there's a post Senator Butthead, which I just perfect. I loved that.
yeah.
Everything about that was great. There's a ton of that stuff. Both ET, well, actually that's not true. I think ET is owned by Fox, who is now owned by Disney, but obviously
Yeah.
Batman is owned by Warner Brothers, right? So they would have had to license that. And it's just like they did a lot. They spent a lot of money picking up a lot of licenses for this film.
Yeah, and they must have like, I don't know. That's it. It's pretty nuts. I wonder if Captain Putty was supposed to be Gumby, and they just couldn't get the license because they were like, no, we're too wholesome to be in your like weird movie and have Gumby be a villain or something like that. That's clearly
I feel that.
that's clearly what he's supposed to be spoofing, but like he's and like
yeah. There's one shot where Seth Rogen, who is playing the weird Polar Express dead-eyed, Viking dwarf or whatever, runs into Mantis, the Blob from Monsters vs. Aliens, both of which are DreamWorks animated movies, and the guy from that one movie that was like Sausage Party, I think it's called, where like the food are alive, but they're also like having sex. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an R-rated weird movie. Uh, and obviously those are all completely different. Or well, it's two movies for one company and then one movie for a third company, and they're all voiced by Seth Rogen, which is the bit. They just got all of the things that he voiced in one location, and it's just like, man, that's got to be so fucking expensive. That's got to be so expensive.
I don't know. Maybe the licensing rights for Sausage Party weren't that expensive, given that that movie was like a train wreck apparently. Um, but yeah, no, they've gotta it's a lot of presumably cash for what is ultimately a big ship post of a movie, right? Like this is. I wonder how much of this was like personal favors to like the Lonely Island people, right? Like we think you're
Mm.
funny, so we'll let you get away with this nonsense. Because you know, thinking about it, like Chip and Dale is like all a lot of these things, like as per what the kind of oeuvre of the movie is. A lot of these things are kind of past their prime, not really primed for like a reboot or anything, right? And so, and like Chip and Dale as a property falls into this as well, right? Like I don't think anybody was.
Yeah, well, so one of the weird things about Chippendale, and this did not come up, which I thought was incredibly weird, and I don't know why I have this understanding, but Chippendale themselves, like Chippendale Rescue Rangers, the show was a reboot, essentially. Like Chippendale are chipmunks who debuted in like the 40s alongside
Like
like,
they were like Looney Tunes or some equivalent, right? Like
yeah, they were like Donald and like
yeah,
Goofy, right? Like they were just part of that cast of characters. And then the Chippendales Rescue Rangers like came out in the 90s, sort of capitalizing on the nostalgia of their cartoon shorts from, I want to say the 40s, it might be the 50s or whatever, like whenever those cartoon shorts were around. So it's like, how did that not come up? How did it not come up that they themselves were reboots in the movie about them, like, being has-been Hollywood reboots? I don't know.
yeah. Maybe this couldn't work it in. I don't, like also like for the fictional narrative of the characters, right? Like that didn't happen, right? Like they like that they were in school as like kids when that happened, I guess, right? Like like that past couldn't have made it wouldn't make sense in the diegetic story of their lives as teenage chipmunks, I guess. I don't know. Like you said, they run through a lot of stuff, right? Like the kind of like, you know, betrayal moment that happens really early in the film, just kind of like which is, Dale leaving to do Agent Dale or Double Agent Dale, whatever the hell fake thing that was. That was like that was like really quick, and it felt like it was supposed to be like a big emotional betrayal, but it didn't feel like it built to it, which I
Mm.
think is in surface is kind of like moving fast, putting things up because like it relies on us to kind of fill the pieces in. Um, what else do we want to talk about with this? Peter Pan, like the Peter Pan thing, I thought was neat as this kind of like another older thing they brought up. Although like you point out, like the logic of how any of this would work makes no sense at all. But this is like a very nitpicky thing, right? Like it's like
Honestly, I feel bad because I can't see that and not see, like, I put this in the thing, right? Like that it's a veiled metaphor for how corporate copyright control is good, actually. And this is kind of unfair. I don't think I would have made this connection if it wasn't already vaguely newsworthy, because that one stupid senator from wherever is like trying to get is trying to fuck with Disney copyrights because Disney is woke and he hates them or something. And like I did a little bit of like unpacking of this just to understand, and because there were people who are like, wow, this person is a dipshit, but that's actually kind of a good point. And yes, the Disney copyright thing is something that people have like hammered Disney for, but it's just like it was on my mind, and I was just like, oh my god, I cannot believe that this is a movie about how people like skirting Disney's copyrights are the moral equivalent of human traffickers. And it's just like, what a galaxy brained take that is. And I don't actually think that that's real, or I should be, or like I don't think anybody like Andy Samberg and Kiva, who are like none of these people are actually making that point. I don't think that fucking like Bob Iger is like Mr. Smithers, make them put this veiled metaphor for our copyright laws in their next movie. And then, you know, I guess Smithers goes and does this. I don't know why I was Mr. Burns in that, but whatever the case may be, right? Like, you know, I just feel like that whole line of things made it very hard for me to kind of get on board with with like the stakes of it. And there's something about this sort of, maybe in a world where they actually drew attention to it, I would have liked it more. But also I probably just would have hated it just as much, because it's the same sort of thing of like, you know, self-aware Disney bullshit in other movies of theirs, right? Where, you know, I don't know, like Frozen, like you, it's bad to get married the same day, ho ho, or like, I don't know. Honestly, maybe the
Someone
best
winks to
example
the
of this is
camera
also
and makes a comment about like the producers of the movie or something like that, or like the suits.
yeah, or like how like the Dumbo movie was about Disneyland. Like there's all of this stuff that's very self-referential about, you know, or like how in the Beauty and the Beast remake, right? There's a lot of added stuff in that movie that is about like the original movie. It is like fixing nitpicks and plot holes from the original movie so that it like works better, but it's just dumb and I hate it and it's stupid, right? I don't know. That's sort of uh, uh, it's hard to get away from talking about like the overall corporate brand stuff when sort of that's what's keeping like those are the balloons that the movie is floating on, to also make a
Yeah,
corporate Disney reference to the Pixar movie Up, available now on Disney Plus.
yeah. I mean, so so like the copyright thing is its own whole thing, right? Like I believe you're talking about Josh Hawley. Like all his politics aside, the
Yeah.
like pretty famously, copyright keeps getting extended whenever Mickey Mouse is about to enter the public domain, and that's about to happen again. I think it's like next year or so is when by the terms of the latest copyright extension, Mickey Mouse would enter the public domain, and usually when this or up until now, every time that has happened, um, those those rights have been extended by statute. Um, and that's probably a bad thing, right? Like originally it was like life of the creator plus like 20 years or something like that, and now it's like, you know, plus, you know, however many eons, you know, Walt Disney's been frozen. But you know, which is not a real thing, by the way. Walt Disney is not actually cryogenically. I know that because like there are serious cryogenics people who are like, no, Walt Disney is not like frozen. I'm going to be frozen. He is not. But like,
First of all, can we go back to the sentence? There are serious cryogenics people.
oh yeah,
What?
there's like like this is like a thing, right? Like that people there's like this big. So this is wild. There is a horror story where like somebody set up one of these plants and like they ran out of money, and so it was just like some dude like trying desperately to like keep this freezer on, keep these people preserved, and you know people ended up like melting and being like, yeah, yeah. Um, so you know, do your research if you're gonna.
Incredible.
Yeah, but like,
What? I need to know. So I need to know everything about this.
I'll
Hold on.
I can come back next week with a fuller report. But but like yes, like people there is a group of people who are interested in cryogenics as kind of like uh a key to immortality if we can't discover a reasonable cure for that within our lifetime.
Right. So you cryogenically freeze yourself. We go into the future where there's a cure for cancer, there's a cure for aging, all this other stuff, right?
Or like a digitization thing. There's like two big groups, right? Or like like not in terms of the services, but like you know, some people preserve their whole body, some people just do the head because like that's the only thing you're going to need to be you in the future, right? So yeah, yeah, it's a whole thing. Um, you can dig into it if you want.
I want to know everything about this. Holy fuck.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
I'll try and put some links in the description. I will send you to Baron. I'll like there's like a big write up of this like disaster of this person who built this cryogenics facility that like ran out of funding and like you know it went to shit. Um, Yeah, but yes.
I just like honestly can't believe that's real. But whatever. Yeah. Anyway, like
back to Chippendale. Sorry.
yeah, back to Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Holy fuck. It's Whiplash Day in the Some Derps Talk About
Yeah,
Games podcast.
well, but that's the crazy thing, right? Like, man, I wonder like if you really wanted to like plumb this like line, right? Like Peter Pan's not an original Disney character, right? Like Peter Pan is was like first of all, Disney made a lot of money, especially during the animation whatever, like like the Disney Renaissance. I believe almost all of those characters were were public domain characters that they just
Mhm.
retold in the Disney Golden Age of animation. Because like Peter Pan is much older than Disney. Like Aladdin straight out of 1001 Arabian Nights. Um, Beauty and the Beast again is an old folk tale. Um, and so it's interesting that then that like Peter Pan's like, is there something you can read into that? Because it's specifically this version of Peter Pan that like grows up, right? And like, um, I don't know. Also, the diegetics of this don't make any sense, right? Because like Peter Pan literally runs into one of the other Lost Boys at one point, and that Lost Boy has not aged. So
Yeah, that also got me for a second. I was like, what? And then the movie just sort of moved on, and I was like, all right,
yeah,
okay.
it's like supposed to be like
If you're not gonna care, neither am I. Okay, movie,
right,
fuck.
right. Like maybe that's supposed to be like like I forget when that happened, but like maybe that was supposed to be like a cosplayer or something. But like
Yeah.
um, I thought the Uncanny Valley thing was like super funny, right? Like the like everybody's like besides like the Dead Eyes things, just like this is the Uncanny Valley where all those things show up. They also like don't like just like like this is like I'm having a big fridge moment right now. It's like the existence of the Uncanny Valley in the diegetics of the movie implies that those things like the characters in the Uncanny Valley were created by something, right? But also like does that mean Chip and Dale were both drawn or were
Yeah,
they
also
born?
because we also know because there's the thing with Gadget and Digger. I guess these are characters
Zipper,
from the show. I never
Zipper.
fucking watched this
Oh
show.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No. So that's a big nostalgia point, right? Monterey Jack, Gadget, and Zipper are all characters from the original Rescue Rangers.
Okay, yeah. And I had the sense that this stinky cheese thing was something established in the
Yeah,
show
it
as
was.
if yeah, like he goes crazy for cheese. Okay, fair enough. They have children which are these like fucking crazy David Cronenberg like amalgam. It's like a fly, but that's a rat, and it has 6 arms, and it's just like what the fuck is like. So there is some level of like birth, I guess. Um,
Yeah, because like Chip's mom shows up in like the flashback,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
So it's just like there's that, and it's I also was like, is this like a weird disability sort of like thing? Because you could sort of make the argument, okay, so Dale goes through the process of 3Difying himself. He gets the 3D surgery, right? To make himself 3D. He is not in the uncanny valley, right? Like he is perfectly fine. Hypothetically speaking, couldn't the Seth Rogen dwarf have gone through the surgery to not be this uncanny valley thing?
yeah, like we're just like all CGI characters born during this era, like
Yeah, and like he works for a guy whose whole thing is about modifying the appearance of these animated creatures, right? You would think he would do that for his like weird Polar Express henchman. Like honestly, I feel like this whole thing just comes from the fact that like the Valley is a thing in LA like speak, and it is just that play on words. That's it. You know,
or
the
yeah,
movie's like no thoughts had empty past that point.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think these are a bunch of connected jokes, right? Like Dale being CGIfied is clearly a plastic surgery joke, right? Like the Dead Eyes thing is like its own set of jokes, but like but like if you stop to think about what the logic implies about the connective tissue of the movie world, it all falls apart like immediately. right? Like, but like the movie doesn't want you to do that, which is fine, right? Like it's it's just kind of the way it is. Also, like things like Chip doesn't appear to have aged. Dale has like some gray streaks. Tiger looks like she's older. Like Peter Pan obviously aged up pretty badly, but like the Lost Boy, like none of this really makes any sense, right? Like, is the implication that Ugly Sonic came into existence with like excuse me, the appearance
Yeah,
of the Sonic movie?
I will say it was genuinely funny, and it got me every time when they zoomed into his human teeth. Because just like I don't like I know that barely matters, but it was funny. It was funny every time. There's
Wait, like,
also another
sorry,
there's
I
also
just have to say, like, is the idea that there were like in the in the like the world of this universe, right? There were multiple blue hedgehogs that were going up to be cast as Sonic, and one of them's like birth name was Ugly Sonic, and he had the part, and then he lost it after the trailer. The trailer dropped.
did he get recast maybe? Is that the implication here?
Right, but like also the implication is his real name is Ugly Sonic, right? Like no one refers to him as like Bob, right? Like
God. What? Yeah, because it's like, okay, so the Sonic movie does not operate out of nothing. It is a video game reference that makes it into the movie. And does that imply that the movie version of Sonic is an adaptation of the video game and that there just happened to be blue Sonics running around Hollywood before then?
yeah, at least two blue hedgehogs, one of which was ugly,
Right? Like,
whose mother named him Ugly Sonic.
I know I'm not supposed to think about it, but I just can't stop thinking about it. I just can't stop thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen, all I know is that the best bit in the movie was the cartoon rap in the Russian bathhouse where he couldn't figure out how to rhyme anything. He could only rhyme his name with whale, which I thought was funny. And I just that was maybe like the most legitimate laugh I had in the whole movie. Like,
yeah, the whole like fucking like raps, like cartoons rapping is like just like so like lame, and then they have to, yeah, I agree. I thought that
yeah, like there were a couple of small moments where I was just like, oh, I see why it's funny. Like, and you kind of get like the smile, but the thing that actually made me laugh was like that like rap scene, which is probably because I think it played best into Andy Samberg's kind of like obnoxious idiot persona,
right, yeah.
and John Mulaney's like bumbling, just the epitome of bad luck kind of character, right? Like it just played into their comedic personas so well. I think maybe what bugs me, and not to say that I don't think either John Mulaney or Andy Samberg have range. I think they both do. But I think that's like really at the core of the thing that like makes this movie, I guess, bad. I guess I'm making the point that this movie is bad. Even like how many clever visual gags does a good movie make? I don't know. None, I guess. I don't
I mean,
like.
it is immaterial to the quality of the movie, right? Like,
Yeah. Like, and that's such a weird thing. I had a great time watching it. I really enjoyed myself. And I probably paid more attention to it than I have certain other movies that I've watched recently, just because like, it's easy for those things to sort of like fall away into the background sometimes and not kind of catch my attention and keep my eyes kind of glued to the screen. But the number of references, like the pure number of these references being as clever as they were, just kind of all over the place, always kind of kept me in it.
yeah, no, I mean that rap scene felt like it could have been out of Pop Star, Never Stop Poppin', or whatever the name of that movie was.
Yeah, that movie is a fantastic film, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah,
A huge bomb, but what a great movie.
I liked it less than Hot Rod, which is my my one true love.
Yeah.
But you know, it was also very good. Yes.
Yeah, I also liked it less than Hot Rod, which is also my one true love. I mean, like I said, I do think that I think that Andy Samberg and like the entire Lonely Island crew have a lot of range and are good at like this. Um so you know, like Popstar Never Stopping was like amazing. And probably the best one of these is actually uh Palm Springs. Have you seen Palm
I have
Springs?
not yet. It's on my
Okay,
notes.
yeah, Palm Springs is the best one of those with like actual heart, right? And real sort of like dramatic chops and like stakes, and like that is a legitimately very good film that sort of demonstrates that there is more to meets the eye for somebody like Andy Samberg. But I think all of the stuff that these guys have done is spectacular.
Yeah.
Honestly, maybe one of my other favorite parts of the movie was that they used a Tenacious D song like not diegetically, but like thematically appropriate, which was a Tenacious D song about these two friends not being friends anymore. And I was just like, wow, what a weird thing to do, because it's Tenacious D, right? You know, like the parody band of kind of like rock metal, like 90, you know, like 90s 2000s rock metal bands is actually being used in a straightforward way to capture the emotion of these two characters who are no longer friends.
Yeah. I mean, hey, they they're
It's gonna be a weird day when we get a Weird Al song, and that's like a legit needle drop, right? You're gonna have like Fortunate Son, and then it's gonna be like Eat It, and that's gonna be like
I was thinking, could you do like a straight needle drop to play one of his songs straight, and it would have to probably be one of the original songs. I guess maybe.
yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to think what would be a good. I like Weird Al's style parodies. Maybe
oh
would be a good option for this, or maybe you could make it with one of his like bigger, even if they are parodies, right? Like bigger songs like White and Nerdy or something like that.
yeah. So, funnily enough, well, I went to the Weird Al concert recently, right? And there was, I can't remember the title of the song, but there's like the song is basically like, you know, like blues jazz number two or whatever, right? Like, it's just like you said, like a style parody. Apparently, um, Armstrong, Louis Armstrong, right? That's the famous guy, right? Like the famous trumpet player. Who knows if this is true or not? But Weird Al said that, I think it was Louis Armstrong. It was one of the famous jazz people said that that was like his second favorite blues song of all time.
Wow, that's something.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. So you know you could do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Weird Al has had a bunch of songs, right, that people have like famously said no to, right? Like I think he had like a weird feud with Prince, which is crazy because apparently everybody loves like Prince is one of those people in Hollywood that everybody like agrees was a great guy, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's some apocryphal story about like how Prince fucking hated Weird Al and absolutely refused to ever let Weird Al do a parody of one of his songs.
Yes, Generic Blues one from UHF. That is the correct song, Lou. Thank you. But yeah, like weird and
God, this
weird.
is gonna make me want to watch UHF.
So I think Generic Blues. I don't think it was in the movie, but it was on the soundtrack. Um,
Okay.
um, but yeah, but like so, and Weird Al didn't have to get permission, right? Like parodies, how the excuse me, parody is protected, and you can do mechanical cover licensing and all that. But he got permission because he wanted to. Like apparently Michael Jackson like really liked Weird Al, and Weird Al asked like he told I forget where I saw this, but he tells a story where like he asked Michael Jackson if he could parody Black and White, and Michael Jackson was like, I don't think like please don't. This is like this is a song with like an important message, right? Because it's like a racial unity message. And
Mhm.
Weird Al says that like I was probably didn't need to like do that. I was struggling to find something to do, and I was just going back to the well, and that was probably the right decision for me to not parody that song. So and we're
Yeah,
getting
I mean, there are definitely some songs that he's parodied that have uh I'm trying to think of what it was. I think it was Amish Paradise. There was like one where he did get permission, but then the song like came out, and the guy was really pissed about it. Which I think was
It was
Busta
Amish
Rhymes for
Paradise.
Gangsta's Paradise, because like Gangsta's Paradise is actually like a really. It's not Busta Rhymes. It's Coolio. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like Gangsta's Paradise is actually like a really kind of like not somber, but like it is a very serious song about this sort of like kind of nihilistic view of this, I don't know, like inner city gang life thing, and how, you know, like it is an ultimately sort of suicidal venture, right? That they are engaging on, or engaging with or whatever. And if I remember correctly, he did make he did make the song, and he like made the video, and then Coolio afterwards was like, I shouldn't have said yes, like I'm mad about this.
My understanding, and this might be off, is that like he got permission from like the production company, and apparently they never asked Coolio. I mean, he felt really bad about it because like it was just like a crossed wires thing.
Okay, yeah, I'm now actually, I looked it up, and I am reading it. It's that the label gave Weird Al the impression that Coolio had granted permission to record the parody, but Coolio maintains that he never did. And obviously like legal action never like took place. Uh
Yeah,
but yeah.
I mean, like Amish Paradise is at least like kind of clever. Like the Zoot Suit riots were like a real thing, and like Grapefruit Diet is kind of like not a great song.
Yeah, I mean there's always gonna be hit or misses. There's a bunch of those, I feel like, for any like Weird Al. Hold on. I'm trying to think. I obviously like know Weird Al's albums more because I was listening to them in the age of CD players,
Right.
but rather than like the age of Spotify. And I just remember like there's a lot of these that I skipped. I almost never skipped a polka. I thought almost all of the polkas were all like great.
Yeah, they were literally just kind of like covers with like strung together like cover bits with like in like the polka style instead of being, they weren't actually parodies.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my the first album I ever ripped, first album I ever had was when I ripped from the library. And it was Bad Hair Day by Weird Al, um, which famously has what does it famously have? Is that Amish Paradise? I think it's Amish Paradise, and it's got Everything You Know Is Wrong, which is one of my personal favorites. Albuquerque is on Running with Scissors, which is another one.
Oh yeah, Albuquerque is, everybody loves Albuquerque.
Yeah, that's one that you could do a real needle drop on, right? Like it couldn't be like you couldn't do the full thing, but like you could, like a song, like a movie about Albuquerque, New Mexico, like the title drop could just be like Albuquerque, right? Like I think you could do.
Yeah. So yeah, Bad Hair Day is Amish Paradise. God, what is the one? There's one that my favorite of them is the one that has Hardware Store.
Oh, that's a real. That's, is that straight out of Linwood?
That's got to be Running with Scissors, right? Or is that Poodle Hat?
Hardware Store is relatively new. That's like it's either Poodle Hat or it's straight out of Linwood.
Yeah. Okay. So Albuquerque is on Running with Scissors. Okay. And then yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then Poodle Hat that's the one that has Hardware Store, which is just the best. I just love everything about Hardware Store.
I spent a long time trying to memorize the list of things part of that song.
So Max, my best friend from high school, Max, and we know the different parts of the song. Like we can do the different parts of the song, which is to say that like I have certain bits of that. The actual list at the very end, we never actually quite nailed down. But the way we did it is that one person says one, the other person says the other, and you go back and forth because nobody can say it that fast. So like nobody can get through it that fast. Even Weird Al himself, it speeds up. But
yeah,
God, man. Anyway, why are we dying now?
Because you know what's gonna happen is we are getting so Chip and Dale is to BoJack Horseman as what the Weird Al biopic is going to be to Dewey Cox, right?
Like, my God, you're right. But like, how? There's no way that's gonna happen, right?
No, it's the trailer's out.
Like, no, I know. I know. But like, also, like the thing, like Weird Al never did drugs. He never went to rehab, right?
Right. I mean, so it's probably not, but like the biopic isn't like a real biopic, right? Like it's like if you watch the trailer, it's fucking Daniel Radcliffe, like, you know, like it's obviously fake what's happening on screen, right? Like, so like he never did, like, first of all, who knows? Maybe Weird Al did drugs and we don't know. But like if he does drugs in the biopic, it doesn't necessarily, like, it doesn't have to be real because it's not going to necessarily be like, it's not the true story of Weird Al. It's kind of like a, you know, it's like it's a funny version of it, right? So yes, and that's coming out on some service that I don't remember ever having heard of or something.
You know what though? I'm gonna fucking watch it. I'm gonna pick whatever that service up for, like however long I need to watch that stupid show because I wanna see it so bad.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough.
Honestly, a YouTube video I go back to all the time is do you know the song Classical Gas?
No.
Classical Gas is like a famously difficult guitar song to play. I'm sure if I like, I don't know, like hummed it for you, you would immediately understand it, right? Like you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's just like a famously difficult guitar song, and it became a meme for a while because there's a bit in The Simpsons where like Lisa is playing a song, and then Lenny shows up and he goes, "Now do Classical Gas," and then she plays like the riff to Classical Gas. And Weird Al, when that meme was at its popularity, Weird Al shot a video of himself in his house in the Hollywood Hills playing Classical Gas on the accordion. And it's actually really great. It is actually fantastic.
Yeah, no, Weird Al's like the best. He's one of those people that like everybody says is like a joy to be around, right? Like has avoided a lot of the blow ups, right? Like, you know. Yeah.
Good job, Weird Al.
Yeah.
Anyway, God, we got so far. I like, what else is there to talk about with this movie?
Yeah, we
right?
can talk about like individual moments that we liked, but like, you know, like I thought the Comic-Con kind of thing was fun, right? Because like that Red is very real, right? Like, I've definitely been to, you know, where like, you know, you don't get Shatner, but you get like, you know, crewmate number 4 again, like Galaxy Quest, right? That with
I think that one is that's a real danger, right? To like come close to, I guess, which is like really sort of shitting on it and portraying it as like bad and pathetic, because like it is a really thin line. There's this one thing about like kind of like down on their luck actor who is at the Comic-Con signing autographs because they're past their prime and they're just trying to like figure their stuff out. But there's also like there's something endearing about that, I guess, which came across in this movie in a way that I thought was good, because it sometimes gets used the other way, and I don't like that. Which is that, like, yeah, sure, these people are in it for a buck, right? Like they're trying to cash in on whatever this nostalgia thing is, and they have a normal job. They have some whatever insurance salesman job at Geico or whatever. But on the weekend, every couple of months, they'll show up. Somebody will reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to come to FanCon Baltimore, the third largest, film convention in the greater Baltimore area or something like that? And they go, sure, right? And they show up and they set up a little booth and it's like, hey, I'm Billy from Power Rangers. I'll sign your things. And I've worked in high school. I like worked to set up a comic book convention with like with a friend of mine who was really like into this stuff. And we contacted a bunch of these people, and a lot of them like just sort of said yes because they just liked to hang out with the fans and to show off, right? Like there was a guy who owns the 66 Batmobile or whatever. And he's just like a perfectly normal, like he is just a perfectly normal guy. I think he was a lawyer, right? He's a lawyer. He lives in Connecticut. He just happened to find the car and buy it, and he has owned it for the last 30, whatever. It was 30 years at the time. It's 40, 50 years now, right? And he just owns the car, and he puts a ton of money into keeping it up, right? Like he has to get very special whatever to keep the thing like fully restored and drivable. And he doesn't need the money. He doesn't give a fuck about like showing up to conventions or whatever. He just wants to show he definitively loses money on that thing, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
but he just wants to show it off, right? And there's that level of sort of like love and appreciation, right? That goes into all of this that I think came across in the Chippendales movie, which I am sort of happy about because it is so easy to use that thing as like the punchline. Even BoJack Horseman sort of did this. And I just, man, I kind of hate that. That's it feels mean spirited.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that was the thing that Galaxy Quest also got was very close to, if not over the line of like, like these fucking like nerd aliens can't figure out that like the show isn't real, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like the whole arc of that movie is about Tim Allen realizing that like he builds his own connection with the nostalgia property that other people do. He is inspired, right, like by the fan sort of dedication. So Galaxy Quest is a very good movie,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah. The funny thing is I watched Galaxy Quest before I had ever watched any Star Trek at all. Uh although it kind of like the setup works for any.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very cool. Yeah, it was watch it if you've got the service, not otherwise. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. Right? Do you have anything else you want to talk about here?
I got nothing else to say.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that'll be the end of that section. Buddy, how was your week?
You know, my week is pretty good.
Movies.
Have I told you that I'm back into Hearthstone? I picked Hearthstone back up because honestly, I just saw that Control Warrior was the top of the meta because aggro Demon Hunter was the number one deck. This always happens. An incredibly fast aggro deck is the best deck in the meta, and then a Control Warrior deck rises up to beat it, right? And that is like, I think the last 3 times I have gotten back into Hearthstone after a break, it has been that recipe that has brought me back. Because I think there's just something fundamentally incredibly fun about saying no to those super fast decks, to being like, oh, you're going to fill the board with minions every turn? No. I'm going to play a card. All it does is for 3 mana, gain me 8 armor. Try getting through that, bitch. Like just that stuff. And like honestly, I honestly did not even fight the Demon Hunter deck all that much. I was mostly fighting sort of the like Demon Hunter was the very bottom of the meta, like the very aggro end of the meta. And then there's this mid-range kind of pirate warrior, mech paladin, mech mage stuff, which is a little bit more, we call this stuff mid-range because it has more value than the aggro deck, but it's faster than a control deck, and that's where it kind of squeaks out its wins. But I was also doing pretty okay against those guys. And then every once in a while you run into just like the insane greed deck. There's like a ramp druid. There is there's one ramp druid deck that's like this. There's also one warlock deck that is like this, where you're putting curses in your opponent's hand and those curses do progressively more and more damage. And you lose to some of those matchups or whatever, but you just kind of sort of like live with that life. But I have mostly just found the addition of Naga to be interesting. Like they added a new tribe called Naga that have a lot of spell synergies. So it's like if you cast a spell while the Naga is in your hand, it activates the Naga, or if you play a Naga while the spell is in your hand, it upgrades the spell. That kind of stuff. And just getting rid of some of the old stuff from the previous metagame has been good overall for the health of the game. I didn't quite realize how much I didn't like that era of Hearthstone, which was, I guess, the 2020 year, which was specifically School of Man's Academy, Whispers of the Old Gods, and whatever the first set in that year was that I can't remember. Ashes of Outland. That was just sort of not that. I just like didn't respond to those sets, and I didn't like that meta very much at all. So them rotating out has kind of made things fresh and cool and new. So there we are.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, similarly, I've been playing a bunch of Magic. I hit platinum earlier today, actually, with, I guess it's kind of a tempo deck. Streets of New Capenna is this kind of like Roaring Twenties theme set, which is very
Mm.
fun. And you've got like 3 color wedges. I am playing Maestros, which is red, black, blue. Um, and it's like I always thought it was like this deck has gotten me a lot further than I thought it was going to, because it's like a lot of kind of like excuse me, like nonsense. Um, just kind of like pretty solid, like you know, do some damage and like things. And I've got a couple of bombs in there, and then like for control aspects, I've got this is like a thing I like. I call it cap and sack, which is like red control, which is like temporary control, and then you activate like a black sacrifice effect to
Oh, sure. Yeah, the other deck that I've been playing a lot of is Priest. Actually, so the Demon Hunter deck got nerfed. Basically, what happened is, that deck was really strong. It got nerfed. Another deck alongside of it also got just a little bit of nerfs. And then they also buffed up some other cards. They buffed up some Hunter stuff. And some rogue stuff. Actually, funnily enough, Thief Rogue is like really meta right now, which is like you're playing cards that are stealing cards from the other deck, because there's a 5 mana priest card called, I don't remember. It's called something, but it replays 5 cards from another class that you've played this game, which can be just an absolutely insane value swing, right? I had one guy who stole 2 6 mana creatures from me, right? Like he played one card that copied a creature that I had on the field. I had this like huge 6 mana 6/6 taunt with a big death rattle or whatever. He copied that and he played it, and he played a hero card, right? Like one of the cards that changes, that changes your hero, and he was just getting insane value off of this thing. And I was just like, holy fuck, buddy, you deserve to win this game. And though I actually think he lost, because he misplayed. The thing about the priest deck that is fun, the priest deck is a quest priest. So quest priest is, turn 1 you play the quest, and then it's you play a 2 mana, a 3 mana, and a 4 mana card, and then the quest advances and you play a 5 mana 6 mana card, and then the quest advances, you play a 7 mana 8 mana card, and then the reward is it shuffles a spell, a 10 mana spell in your deck that just says destroy the enemy hero, right? It is a 10 mana spell, win the game, right? um and this rogue, who absolutely deserved to win this game, killed a death rattle minion that I had on the board that drew me a spell. And I was like, you just watched me shuffle this win the game spell into my deck, and then you killed it. Why would you do that? Right? Like, you could have just left it. And I won the game off that. So I definitely feel I don't know. I definitely feel the picking shit up and taking it for yourself is a cool way to play.
yeah, no, yeah, and like I said, Maestros have a bunch of way to actuate that, which is it's just been a ton of fun. Um,
Are you playing like all 3 colors equally?
no, it's a little bit more heavy on the black and the red. Just because like there's like a handful of black, blue, red cards. Then there's a few black, red cards. And then there's a couple of solos of each color. Although there might not be any solo. Oh, there's a couple of solo black cards. So the blue is mostly the blue parts of the Maestro cards, and also I've got like a couple of counter spells and wall of text, or not wall of text, wall of runes, which I called wall of text because that's like a popular internet meme. Is wall of text, and you post the art from like wall of runes, because it's just like yeah, but yeah. And that's in the alchemy format, which is like Arena's answer to Hearthstone. Essentially, it
Mhm.
has some cards that are out of standard, and also some cards that like have some effects that like don't work in paper. Um, Gotta say, I'm not huge fan of the uh, the Dungeons and Dragons mechanics, which I think are at the end of their cycle right now. But it's been a ton of fun to play. There's a lot of excuse me, a very popular deck is this white life gain deck, and it's either pure white or it's white green. Essentially, it's a bunch of cards that like when a creature enters the battlefield, gain a life, and then a bunch of other cards are like when you gain life, put a +1/+1 token on these creatures, and it's like very hard. Like if they get ahead of you, you're pretty boned, but it is what it is. Um, uh, yeah, no, it's been fun. Also, they've got a couple singleton formats that have been fun. Uh,
Have you played like brawls?
so the thing that they have that is equivalent to brawls recently has been essentially for each of the wedges they've had a uh essentially uh play a singleton deck and get an emblem that does like the iconic thing that thing does. Like for maestros, it's you can cast cards out of your graveyard. You can cast sorceries instants out of your graveyard with the additional cost if you have to sacrifice something, and then also the spell gets exiled.
You
Um,
know, that's really interesting. Something that I find so Hearthstone has these tavern brawls, right? Every week the tavern brawls kind of like rotate around, and pretty quickly what happens is people find the degenerate best deck in the meta, you know what I mean? And they just abuse it until like everyone is essentially playing this thing, right? Which is to say that the metas get solved basically instantaneously, and there's no balance really, because mostly the brawls are just, hey, what if this weird rule was applied to normal Hearthstone? And everybody went, whoa, and then they break the meta 6 hours later. It's kind of surprising that that hasn't happened for like that doesn't happen for like Magic the Gathering
I
formats.
I feel like, well, for for like the brawl parts of it, I think there's just one, there's so many cards, and two, also
Yeah.
like I think that does happen to a certain extent, but like, I just don't. So first of all, it's not free, right? Like you have to pay some free current. Like you pay like coins, which is the free currency to it. The other thing is you're trying to get like 5 wins to get what's it called, cosmetics, right? Like you got, so like the big thing, like the alternate art for this set is there's Art Deco art, that's card art, and that's true in physical Magic, but in Arena Magic, obviously, it's just kind of like whatever you want, right? Like you can put whatever face in the cards you want if you get the styles. And so I feel like none of them are compelling enough that people are just like grinding on them. I think people are just like playing until they get their 5 wins and they get their rewards and then they're out. Because they're fun, but they're also like not like I don't know. At least from my perspective, you're either playing one of the fun formats, like you're either playing one of those formats, or you're playing like ranked, or you're maybe like jumping into something else, right? Like it just, I haven't seen a lot of try harding in these kind of like side things for whatever reason. Maybe because those people are like too busy, like actually trying hard, right? Like last
Mhm.
weekend, there's a play in for like like real Magic, real tournaments, like real money tournaments, right? Like it was like a best of one play, and I didn't go for it, but like you could, right? Like if you cared enough, you could go like do real Magic, right? As opposed to I guess Hearthstone still kind of has a like, this is not a real game type stuff to it. Also, there's just not as many cards. Also, the space is less ordered, right? Like
Mhm.
the majority of Hearthstone cards aren't class cards, right? Like most of them are common cards. Is that correct?
I don't know how true that is anymore. It used to be that that was the case, but I think at this point now it is the other way around. I mean, I don't know. Mathematically, I guess it has to be you have more neutral cards than you have class cards, right? But I know that they did make changes to this because in the early version of Hearthstone, I think there was only one epic and one legendary. Now I think there's two epics, two legendaries, like four rares and a bunch of commons in every single set. So yes, I do think that you're correct, just like on a numbers level,
Yeah,
right? There's no way.
and on top of that, right? Like because you don't have like the split mana base, like the game is built a little bit less. Like I think the decision space in Hearthstone is a little bit more evenly distributed, I guess is maybe the way to put it, than in Magic. Also, part of it is just like, you can't interact on your opponent's turn in Hearthstone. So that's like just kind of naturally limiting what
Yeah.
things you can do.
And there's also the value. You're right. Like a Magic deck has less than 100% value because you have lands, right?
Right.
A
Yeah.
Hearthstone deck is all value. Every card you draw is like true value, even if it's a 1 mana creature or whatever. Whereas you can, in Magic you can always get mana screwed. You can always
Yeah. Mana
you know
flooded. Right. Like,
mana flooded, right? You can fuck around with your mana base in order to like make it better and more optimized. Everything about optimization in Hearthstone is all about the curve, right? You're trying to curve.
right.
um and that's like I guess that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Although I will say that, like, in terms of like getting your mana base right, there's like there's at least 3 different types of dual lands that I can think of off the top of my head, and like triple lands for each of the the clans or whatever for each of the wedges. And then there's also like your sack lands, right? Like,
Mhm.
and a bunch of like each wedge also has a, I think it's like it might differ by wedge, but like the one for my shows is a 6 mana creature that has a 2 mana ability on it that lets you attach it to a land, and that land will produce any of the 3 colors of the wedge, right? So like there's a lot of ways to kind of like smooth out your wedge. The issue then is just kind of keeping up with the curve, because like almost all of them play tapped, right? So like you can't so like you're one behind the curve um if you're constantly playing dual lands, even if you're getting the secondary benefit. Um uh but yeah, it's no, it's been fun. We'll see how high I can climb
Did
with
you happen
this.
to catch the reveal of Marvel Snap?
No, I didn't.
Marvel Snap is the game that Ben Brode has been working on. You know, Ben Brode was
Yeah.
the game director for the first couple of years of Hearthstone, and he eventually left to create his own company. And they just revealed it, which is a digital trading card game. That it's based on like Marvel, right? So it's you make a deck of Marvel heroes, but it is a mobile game where you play turns simultaneously against your opponent, and it is all about anteing and waging and like making like wagers, because what you can do is um you can essentially bet like who is going to win the match at any individual moment, and you can up the stakes by betting and betting and betting, like more and more and more. It's called snapping, obviously. um I don't know. It looks weird, and I don't think it's for me, but a lot of people that I trust, whose opinions I trust, said that it was cool and interesting. Like Disguised Toast or Trump or whatever. Most of these people also said the same thing about Legends of Runeterra, and to my knowledge, that basically fell off.
Did it
Like
really?
I'm sure there are like Legends of Runeterra people who really care about that game and like that game and everything like that, but like I don't know. I was just wondering because it's neat.
I was gonna say the other big like card game that's like a little bit weird in the space is Teppen, which is a mobile game, the Capcom game, which is like a lot more live. You know, it's like simultaneous turns, like you said about Snap, but like it's Capcom characters.
Yeah, yeah. My understanding is that people think um Marvel Snap is like poker. It is more like poker than it is like Magic or Hearthstone or anything, because it is about it's so much about that mechanics, you know, like wagering thing. Are you bluffing? Are you playing mind games with your opponent? That kind of a thing.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So otherwise in my week, what? Well, I can't tell I'm sick. I caught COVID, so that's why we didn't have an episode last week. And that it took that first day was really bad, and I took that occasion to watch the first season of Barry, which we talked about off cast, which a lot darker than I expected it to be for what especially the end of that like the end of that first season like goes real dark like.
Barry is maybe the bleakest show on television that I can like think of. Like I don't think it is the best show on television. That's
Better
still a Better Call Saul. Season 6 of Better Call Saul has been an absolute treat from beginning to end. Uh, but yeah, Barry is a dark, fucked up show. Um, I remember I watched a YouTube video and I couldn't find it. The person who made it, I like tracked this whole thing down where I was trying to find it. The person who made it ended up privating the video, but he basically made a whole video about how Barry is darker and like more, I don't want to say more fucked up, but it sort of is, than Game of Thrones, right? And how people talk about Game of Thrones like, oh, it's so edgy, right? Like they say fuck and it's crazy because there's whatever. And this dude was like, dude, Barry is over here like not only being way bleaker and way darker, but also really fucking funny. And it makes me laugh my ass off, right? Like NoHo Hank is such a mood. I love that guy.
I do too. Like, I mean, obviously, like, he's ascending at the end of the season. Spoilers for Barry season 1, I guess, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I have not seen any of season 3 yet, but I have seen the first 2 seasons, and obviously I'm not going to spoil any of season 2 for you because you should watch it because it's good.
I agree. It's been a lot of fun. I love Bill Hader, right? Like, it's been a trip.
He is also weirdly amazing in this, which is the craziest thing. I mean, honestly, I kind of get it in a certain sense because have you ever watched like an interview with Bill Hader? He's like the most subdued, like very, very, just like kind of quiet and not like big and flamboyant. And then he goes out and he's doing these like SNL scenes, and the guy is like a clown. I'm just like, how are you going so big like this? And then in an interview, it's just like, I mean, he's basically like an Oklahoma farm boy, right? Right? Maybe he comes from Nebraska. It's like one of those, prairie states or whatever. And Barry is like, like the character of Barry is more like Bill Hader when you watch him in these interviews than like anything else Bill Hader's ever done ever.
I was just, but like he was pretty subdued in Hot Rod. Like he was like
That's true. Yeah.
he was a pretty quiet character. But yes, I see what you're saying, right? Like, um, uh, yeah, and like you said, it gets real. Like it's a lot. Like they, without spoiling too much, they do a big dodge, or like the big first kind of like moral crisis moment they dodge on, right? Um, which is like so premise of the show is he is a hitman, right? So this is not a spoiler. The first person he goes to hit in the show as part of the plot of the show is like a moral conflict, and they dodge around that for
Hmm.
reasons. But then later in the season, it goes downhill real like it's like in Breaking Bad, Walt takes like 2 or 3 seasons to like go from like mild mannered chemistry teacher to like like the one who knocks or whatever, right? Like um whereas Bill Hader starts, obviously he's a hitman, so like it starts pretty bad, but like it feels kind of innocent, right? Like he only kills like bad guys, right? Like, and then he goes off the fucking off a fucking cliff real fucking fast. Like it's
Yeah, I mean, the end of the season, like the end of that first season was just like, I just really didn't think they were gonna go there. I just did
yeah.
not think that they had like the balls to go there, and and they did. They did. I was just like, wow, dude, because obviously without spoilers, the end of the first season is like kind of the crossing of the Rubicon, right? Like you watch him build to it, but you're still sort of like on his side about everything else. But then it's just like you get to the end of the season, it's over. You can't anymore. It's bad. He
Like
does the bad thing, and it is super bad.
it was like so bad. Like there's a couple of things that happen, but like the thing that happens at the very end of the first season, I was like, this has got to be like a dream sequence or something, right? Right? Because they fool around with that. I was like, no, not at all. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, there's another one that's in the middle there. That is the one that actually tugs on my heartstrings the most. I think that one is the toughest one in terms of just like on an emotional level because you can that's the moment where it frays Barry the most, and he is coming to grips with how awful a person he truly is, right? But yeah, man, what a show, and it only gets worse from there.
oh,
Let me just
fantastic. Uh, right. What else? So I got back into Destiny like this weekend because the new
nice.
season drops tomorrow. I played a bunch of it over the past couple days to try and get as caught up as I could. Not really enough time to finish out everything, but it was neat. It's
Are you just
Destiny.
always coming back to the same character whenever you do?
Yeah, so I theoretically have 3 characters at maximum level because at some point I got bored and I made a my main's warlock. I made a hunter and a titan. Then at some point we're at max light level. They are not anymore. Um, I also, you know, character differentiation isn't as hard as it is in other other games, right? Like like a monk is much more different than a warlock than in WoW than a
Yeah,
like
that a warlock
warlock
is
is
different
different
than a
from
hunter.
yeah. or a Titan. There's some important differences, but most of it's about the guns, and the guns are usable by every class. Um, but yeah, it's super fun. They haven't said anything about this new season, which some people like are like friend of the cast Monica is like convinced it's gonna be like some like mind melting shit because like there's been like some like pseudo leaks that like imply like the players aren't gonna be able to handle it or whatever. I am less optimistic, but we'll see. Um, I am convinced that though at the very least I am convinced that they are holding back because they want to, if that makes like they want to make a statement with it rather than like them trying to dodge the fact this is going to be bad. So I don't think it's going to be bad, but like it's a matter of sticking the landing, and it's Bungie, right? Like
Yeah.
and it's Destiny, which has been pretty good, but like has like had creeping kind of monetization problems, um which are not which it feels like it's in a pretty good place right now. um it's just kind of a matter of expectation adjustment, right? Essentially, your season pass is your WoW subscription fee, except it costs it's spread over a longer
It's all
period.
up front, right?
Yeah, it's all up front, and it lasts for a longer period of time, right? Like um and also the I think it roughly works out to like kind of the same amount of money, but whatever. um,
Yeah, I have had a similar experience in getting into co-op PvE shooters because of the Overwatch event, right? Like I talked last week about getting back into Overwatch, and that was in the PvP mode, right? Just because I don't want to say that like we're like burned out on WoW. I still ran a million keys this week, probably like 10 or 15, but there's a lot there's more time where the team is like, hey, what if we like loaded up Overwatch and played a bunch of Overwatch? But the thing that I discovered this weekend was the arcade, which I had never really like dealt with before, right? The arcade is where they hold like the different sort of like map modes, right? So you can play Overwatch Classic, which is like no roles, right? You can just queue as whatever. You can have 4 DPS in a party, that kind of thing. There's like deathmatch. There's free for all. There's 8 player free for all. There's a bunch of other stuff. Um, and for the anniversary event, right, because this is the Overwatch anniversary or whatever, they brought back a bunch of co-op PvE missions, um which is like the thing that I want out of most shooters, right? Like I want to play a shooter because I like the dynamics of these kind of co-op PvE shooters more than I like any like PvP stuff like that. And so I was getting really into those, and then I discovered the fucking game browser. I had no idea this thing existed and had as much support as it does. There is a workshop like mode, like a level designer essentially for Overwatch, and it reminds me a lot of those old like StarCraft 2 like custom maps, like the StarCraft 2 arcade,
right.
or like the Warcraft
Warcraft
3 custom
custom
maps.
maps,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, there are a million of them, and they are insane. There's one called Heat Streets that is probably there's a couple that I've played that are very good, but the one that I think is my favorite is called Heat Streets, which is it's this really complex map where it is like waves, but the waves are different units that are like sort of genericized Overwatch heroes, right? So you will have the trooper, who is Soldier 76, or a heavy trooper which is Soldier 76, and he can drop the biotic healing field, right? But it's like for all of the different Overwatch characters, right? You have the gunslinger, which is Cassidy. You have, the shinobi, which is Genji. You have the playmaker, which is Tracer, right? You have the tanks. I think the bulldozer is Orisa. The crusader is uh Reinhardt, the Juggernaut, who is obviously, maybe not obviously, who is like Roadhog, right? So you have all these different things, and they're all spawning into the map like constantly. And killing them grants points, and then you can then spend the points on talents. And the talents, some of the talents are specific to the hero, right? Like, like I was playing Echo, who's just like a new character, and she has an alternate fire that sends out a bunch of sticky grenades, and you could like spec into a talent that increases the number of sticky grenades, right? Or it changes the way one of her other moves works so that it's like way better to be using. It's kind of a PvE focused move, or I'm sorry, PvP focused move that they like change to be PvE or whatever. And it's just like, it is insane the amount of work that got put into this mod. But I don't know. It's super cool, and I want it, and it makes me want to play Overwatch 2 so bad. Because there is something like the thing I always liked about Payday and Killing Floor is the different ways that you can interface, right, with the challenge, right? I can play a sharpshooter, I can play a sniper, I can play, like the super armored shotgun tank, right? I can play the super fast. I can't remember what it was called in Payday, but it was basically my favorite build at the end, where you're wielding two different guns akimbo and you're sprinting constantly because sprinting gives you dodge chance, and you have no armor. So if you get hit, you lose all your health immediately, right? But most of the time you're just running around and you can't get hit because you have like 90% dodge chance, that kind of stuff. Well, Overwatch having 30 different characters basically means that you have 30 different classes to play, right? In any of these individual encounters. Which is cool and fun, and I want it.
Very cool. Yeah. That's
Yeah, the other thing that I've been doing is playing the Stellaris DLC, which I was also hyped for and also um like worried about, but or not worried about, but like I was like trying I was ready for it like the day it released. And I've been playing Iron Man for all of my runs in Stellaris for a long time now. And my first game I basically lost to a bad start. My second game I got really deep in that one, and then I ran into a corrupted save glitch, so I lost that whole Iron Man run. My third game, I had a pretty good start, but I didn't like a certain aspect of it, and I decided to restart. My fourth game, I had a really bad start, and I'm now on my fifth game. We're finally in it with the fifth one, which I probably played like, I don't know, like 10 or 20 or 30 hours of so far. Honestly, the new DLC has not been all that impactful, but like I really feel the aggregate over the years of Stellaris getting better and better with the different with the different patches, with the different DLC kind of like packages or whatever. Being able to do archaeology and leviathans and all of the new ascension perks and origins and all of this other, like all of that stuff in aggregate has made for a pretty cool overall experience. So I don't know. I don't really have anything more complex to say about it than that, besides having a good time with the new Stellaris DLC.
yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Like Stellaris has always been like a second tier Paradox game for me. I guess everything to me is a second tier Paradox game besides like Crusader Kings. Um, yeah, and maybe Imperator's a third tier game, but
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I would have said for a long time that my number one Paradox game was Europa Universalis, but like now at this point that really doesn't seem true anymore. It's gotta be Stellaris, right? Like I never go back and play EU4 at this point. I haven't played EU4 probably in 4 or 5 years. But I come back and I play Stellaris every couple of months. I also the one that got away, the one that I want to like and play, but I just never get around to it, is Hearts of Iron 4. Because I remember I was waiting for a DLC for that. I always wanted to play Russia, just because like America is sort of too easy. Both sort of America and Nazi Germany are too easy. Um, I just had a bad time playing a UK game, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play Russia, right? Like this is how I'm going to approach Hearts of Iron, but they hadn't done a DLC for it. Um, and so I was just kind of like waiting for that to happen. And then they did release the DLC for it, but I just kind of haven't. I just kind of haven't. I just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
don't want
I get that. I
to.
feel that it's one of those like I want to play more, say Guilty Gear Strive, but it's like haven't rotated it back in yet, right? Like there's
Yeah.
other stuff to do. I still want to finish fucking Elden Ring. I'm like making my way through it, but like massive fucking game.
Yeah.
Oy. All right. Well, I think that's everything I have. But you want to talk about anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. I'm good.
Well, if you'd like to tell us what you thought about any of the things we talked about on this podcast, you can email us at subdurplegames@gmail.com or podcast@subdurplegames.com. Follow us at twitch.tv/subdurplegames. These go out live. Um, Rate reviews wherever you find podcasts. These are also on YouTube and on anywhere basically you can find podcasts. Um, that's everything I have. Buddy, you have anything else you're looking to promote?
I have nothing else that I am looking to promote.
In that case, I'm going to say until next time, dear listeners.
Until next time, loyal listeners.